Hi, Michelle. Let's take a look at this new set of essays you've sent us. We've got the car brands here. Let's see what you did. The bar chart illustrates a number of cars with different brands, such as Ford, Audi, and BMW, that are sold in 2018 across 9 European countries. Okay, that's good. There are a couple little changes I want to make. So, the bar chart illustrates a number of cars of different brands, or you could have said from different brands. And then it's not are sold, but it's were sold because 2018 is in the past. And then the other thing is you have to be careful with such as Ford and Audi, because when you say that, it's as if you're using them as an example of what you're talking about, which leads the reader to think that maybe there are other brands as well. Okay, but that's not the case here. So what you could have done was rephrase this a little bit to make it a little more accurate, to show that really it's just about these three car companies. You could have said the bar chart illustrates the number of cars. Actually, let's make it one click better. The bar chart illustrates the number of Ford, Audi, and BMW cars that were sold in 2018 across 9 European countries. And then that's really good. Careful here, you left out a letter. So looking from an overall perspective, it is readily apparent that Hungary had the highest total car sales in 2018, while Belgium had the least. That's perfect. Although Belgium traded merely 90,000 cars in 2018, more than 90% of the cars sold were Ford. Furthermore, Ford cars were also popular in Holland and Hungary. Ford, Holland and Hungary. Okay. With the sales of around 140,000 and 130,000 respectively in 2018. In contrast, less than 1/10 of the figures of the cars sold were Ford in Germany and Italy. Okay. A similar trend was shown in Audi sales in Germany and Hungary. In 2018, nearly 150,000 Audi cars were sold in both countries. Audi automobiles were least favorable in the UK, Belgium, and Italy, where the sales were less than a quarter of the total sales. Meanwhile, more than 100,000 BMWs were sold in France, Germany, Ireland, and Hungary. The sales in BMW were less than 100,000 in other countries. Okay. So I thought that your organization was interesting. For me, it was very interesting that you split your paragraphs up like this and that you decided to start talking about Ford. I thought that was an interesting choice. And then let's see, so you started in general talking about Ford, and then you talked about the individual countries. Let's say. Let me tell you where you ran into a problem here. You really just focused on, let me show you what you focused on. You really focused on the car companies and how they kind of factored into this total, but you never really focused on that total. I think it was only when you talked about Belgium that you really truly talked about a total here. I think there was maybe one other place. Let me see. Oh yeah, there was some other place where you said 1/10 of the figures sold were Ford, which, okay, I mean, you mentioned it, but you didn't really tell us like what that meant. So we didn't really have a frame of reference, like 1/10 of what. So since we didn't know that total figure, that piece of data was a little less meaningful than would have been helpful. So this is a stacked bar chart. So let's talk about what that means. It means that you have this total here. So you've got this 300, you've got this 400, etc. And then within that, they tell you how that number came about, okay? So in the case of Hungary, that 400,000 was made up equally of BMW, Audi, and Ford. In the case of Italy, it is predominantly made up of by BMW, and then the rest of the amount is made up equally by Audi and Ford. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because this figure, this total figure, that 400, that 300, that just under 100,000, that's a really important figure. And you should have developed this more in your answer because that's a big part of your answer. Then you needed to go into some detail about what figures made up that total figure. Okay, so again, that Hungary had an equal number of sales of all three car types. Okay, or what you said here about Belgium was good, but you just needed to develop that and say a little more about the other countries as well. And also, you can't forget to include data. Like I said, you never really mentioned the data for that total number of sales, and so that's really missing an important piece of this puzzle here. Now, if I were going to do this, of course, there's not just one way to do this task one. There are many ways, but I'm going to tell you a way that I think is really helpful. You have a lot of pieces of information here. More specifically, you have 36 pieces of information. So you clearly cannot talk about them all, and you shouldn't talk about them all. But there are some things that you can do, and there are some ways that you can deal with so much information. And that's really, it really has to do with grouping your information together. So let me tell you how I would have done this. I would have spent one paragraph talking just about those total figures. So what I would have done is I would have said that Hungary sold the most cars overall, followed by France with almost 100,000 less. The least cars were sold in Belgium, followed by Italy, and the remaining countries all sold between 200 and 70,000 cars. And then you're done with that total. In my next paragraph, I would have talked about the individual car companies, but here you can't get into a whole ton of detail. So again, you're going to focus on those highs, on those lows, and then just kind of, lump those middle numbers together. So I probably would have started talking about BMW, partially because it's the easiest, but it's also, I think, the most popular car type. So I would have said that all of the countries sold approximately 100,000 BMWs. Look, it's more or less along that line. The only exception was Belgium, which sold a negligible amount. I would then talk about Ford, saying that Ford was most popular in Hungary and Holland. I would give what that figure is. I would say that it was least popular among Germans and Italians, and I would say what that figure is. Again, you can say approximately, and then I would say that the other countries were between whatever this figure is and whatever that figure is. All right? And then you do something similar for Audi. By the time you get to Audi, you don't really have to talk about a lot. Really, just you can give a range that the sales of Audis were between this, and then you're done. Okay? So that's how I would do it. It's a quick way of doing it. It's a clear way of doing it. This way you have all the important information, but you haven't overdone it with the information, but you also haven't underdone it. So I hope that helps. Let's take a look now at your task 2 about pollution in cities. Pollution problems such as air pollution and water pollution are becoming increasingly serious in major cities. In this essay, study from the Malaysia government and research by the UN will be used to analyze the cause for this condition, and ways to tackle these problems will be discussed. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things in this introduction. First of all, in the first sentence, you have the word pollution 3 times, and it just becomes very repetitive. What this gives you is an excellent opportunity to use some good cohesion. All right? So I would have changed this around a little bit, like this. Environmental problems such as air and water pollution are becoming serious in major cities. Okay? So I reduced one of those pollutions and I changed this from pollution problems to environmental. Then here in this essay, a study from the Malaysian with an N government and research by the UN will be used to analyze the cause for this condition and ways to tackle these problems. Full stop. Because you said they will be used to analyze and tackle. So you don't need to say will be discussed. That was too much. Okay? So, with that, let's continue. Traffic congestion, which is one of the major cities' problems, could lead to air pollution. Okay, now when you write the major city's problem, it's as if it's just one major city and it's a problem just in that one major city. So it should read traffic congestion, which is one of the problems of major cities, IES, could lead to air pollution. As the number of cars increases in cities, it will cause the rise of carbon monoxide being emitted into the environment. Based on a study by the Malaysian with an N government in 2020, there is a 10% increase in air pollution for every 5% surge in car sales in Malaysia. Moreover, due to the rapid development in urban areas, many factories are built to cater to the demand of the growing population. In order to save costs with an S, factories not probably, but are inclined to dispose of factory waste into the ocean without proper standard of operation. Standards with an S here. Incorrect methods of waste disposal by factories will lead to severe water pollution. Research by the UN indicates that 60% of the water pollution is caused by illegal waste disposal from factories. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I like this, but there are a couple of things that I want to change. First of all, the first sentence of your paragraph didn't really introduce us to what the central idea of this paragraph is. I felt like you kind of just went into it. You started listing or you started talking about the reasons. So, you needed to have something that really covered both of the things that you were talking about. You were talking about pollution of the air by cars, and you're also talking about pollution of the water from factories. So you needed a sentence that covered both of those things. So I would have taken a step back from here and had a topic sentence that does that covers both of them. I could have written something like this. Pollution can be attributed to two main causes, and then have a colon and say cars and factories. Okay? And then you could go into the rest of it and it would have been fine. But this way, it's clear when you read that first sentence, it's clear what that paragraph is going to talk about. The causes of the causes of pollution, and that those causes are cars and factories. All right? So, to tackle these problems, the government plays a vital role. In order to reduce usage of cars in large cities, the government should allocate funds to improving public transport. People will be encouraged to use public transport when it offers lower fares and is more convenient. Not when it offers, the public transport doesn't offer it, but when it has lower fares, it is more convenient. Okay. And then here, since you're kind of switching gears, indicate that. So you could have said something like, as for factories, stricter punishments such as heavier fines or even jail sentences should be imposed by the government on factories that are caught disposing of waste products illegally. This could help prevent water pollution from worsening as it acts as a this is awkward here. You should have just said as it acts as a deterrent. And that's fine. Okay. So, in conclusion, pollution problems in major cities are caused by a high number of automobiles and illegal waste disposal by factories. To counteract these problems, the government should take the responsibility to provide a better public transport system and impose stricter laws. Through these efforts, it is predicted that the level of pollution will decrease significantly. Okay, that's good. I liked it. I mean, it needed some little tweaks here and there. on the whole, you definitely have the right idea. So well done. Go ahead and make the changes you need to make to this essay, and let's see more work from you, okay? Good luck. Keep at it. I'll be waiting for your next set.